All right, another long day today, busy day, busy in a good way, and like, I'm just in a weird phase. I'm really getting like into art. I'm really getting into learning new things and working out. Just trying not to read news or, social media is becoming pretty, like, when I stop reading comments on here, I'm feeling a lot better, because it used to bug me, when people would talk shit, even though it's stuff that I say all the time, like, hey, dog, hey, you're a piece of shit. I'm like, yeah, I know, I say that every video. You're a dirtbag, dog. I say that every video too. You're a bitch, kind of, or like they'll talk shit about my girl, you know, say, she that your hot girlfriend is ugly. That's what they'll say. My girlfriend. First of all, she's my wife. And you know the kind of guys that say stuff like that. They're the kind that, like, every year you're talking with your friends right when like the new school year starts, and they'll just be like, "Oh, pussy? Yeah, I mean, yeah, no. I got this girl, right? Every summer at summer camp, she lets me finger her. So what?" Come to find out that they've never even been to summer camp. Um, you know, oh, no. Well, why aren't you ever with girls? Because I'm loyal to my long distance girlfriend. Really? What's her name? Uh, Paper? That's not a name. She's native. People like that. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out patreon.com/Ryan Leone. Got exclusive content on there. Be interviewing some of my friends, just leaving it on there. Karina's already done an interview. We're going to do another one. The Megan video. Mm-hmm. And then I got some parallel storylines going right now. I got one for the $10 and up tier, and I'm going to start one for the $20 and up tier, and I'm going to start one for the $100 and up tier. So it'll be like just a bunch of different stories going at once. Let's get into the video. So, geez, the audio, geez, I become that guy. Jeez, it just doesn't sound right. What's up with the audio? Let's kind of tweak this out. Uh, 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 let's try this. Does that sound better? Kind of. And, usually when I do my little warm ups, the purpose is to make sure that the audio is correct and just kind of get in the mode of talking. But I don't know. I'm kind of hearing some interference, but I'm just going to keep going because I know it's late. I want to get this up for you Patreon guys and gals that have been waiting for it. So I don't really remember where we left off last time. I think that I had reached out to Antwon. I was living in that abandoned house that, was a few blocks from Karina's parents' house. And also at that time, I'm not sure, I don't think I ever brought it up. I think I talked about it on the album. Um, I got into playing the lotto second chance. Now, when I was in, I don't know, probably some jail somewhere, maybe it was when I was in the feds, I had somebody tell me that they had won like $100,000 or something ridiculous. I don't know, maybe it was, I don't remember what the exact number, but from playing the lotto second chance. So, the scratcher tickets that you get at the store, I believe they do this in every state. They certainly do it in California. When you go get a scratcher at the store and you lose, people just like leave them on the counter, leave them in the trash. There's a barcode on the back that you can download an app on your phone, and you can download it and you can scan that barcode, and it automatically puts you in for second chance, like a raffle type thing. Because there's like millions of dollars each year that goes unclaimed. People get scratcher tickets, and it's like, if you get three zebras, you win 3 grand. And then they like get three zebras, and they're like, fuck. I think it says that if I get 3 of these, I lose. Fuck this. And they just like toss it into the trash. And that happens more frequently than not, or maybe people lose the tickets. Whatever the case, there's a number of unclaimed prizes for scratcher tickets. So I think by law, they have to, before they can just keep that money, they have to be able for like, because it's, the lottery is like a very regulated industry. I think they have to, by law, give you a second chance. And, while I was homeless, I still had an iPhone. And I just thought, well, I'm not doing anything else. It is literally a mathematical certainty that if I put enough second chance lotto scratcher tickets in my app, you just scan them and that's it. It's super easy. And like, so I would go to like liquor stores, 7-Elevens, and I would like dumpster dive. Like a lot of times they leave them on the counter. A lot of times they leave them in little waste paper baskets. And, just like any addiction, at first I experimented a little bit. Like, okay, I'll just get the extra ones that are on the counter, and then after that wasn't, you know, satiating my, it's a very weird way of saying that. Anyway, doesn't matter. I'm losing what I'm saying here. Point is I went from getting them off the counter to get them in the little, waste paper baskets to like full blown, like going in trash cans in front of 7-Eleven. Like I'd get like mustard stains on my shoulder and I'd just like come out and look all, and I'd run into people I like went to high school with and they'd be like, "Hey, Ryan, how you doing? You still on drugs?" I'm like, "No, shit's whack." But I have like all these mustard stains all over me, and I'm like, they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, nothing. I just, I lost my wedding ring." I'm like, "Okay, nice seeing you." They like jump in their Range Rover. I don't even have a car. I'm just like, "Oh yeah, I'm valeted a couple blocks away. Just felt like walking. My physique's important to me." Like, "All right, man. Have a good one." All right. I was just a big time loser. I mean, like literally, I'd go and just dumpster dive. No shame, you know? Um, I did it every single day, lit hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Now, around this time, I'm also smoking Reef Rise because I can't even afford cigarettes anymore. Like now I'm off alcohol, except for the occasional little relapse, but they're very few and far between. I think the last major one was when I had blacked out and called Antwon, the pro skater, or messaged him on or commented on Instagram, and then he called me the next day. But you know, I still was heavily addicted to nicotine. That's like the one addiction throughout the years that I've never been able to stop. Of course, in jail, you're forced to stop. I mean, I smoke any chance I can. And one time on the street, I was able to quit for a year, but I was vaping the whole time. I don't know. I'm just a nicotine junkie. And nowadays in California, packs $10. I just started smoking Reef Rise, which means that you just find like a half smoked cigarette that's preferably like in an ashtray with like sand. So it's not like disgusting with like tire fucking skid marks on it or with like red lipstick stains. But you get to a point with a Reef Rise addiction, just like with the scratcher addiction, where you have no shame. Kendra would drive me around sometimes at like midnight. I'd be like, "Here, take me to all the bars." Like on a Friday night where shit's like just straight cracking in Santa Barbara. And like everyone's like drinking, like, on the balcony of some bar. And I would just jump out of her car and run up with like a black trash bag and just dump the ashtray into the black trash bag. These people would be looking at me like, "Oh my God, that guy's a drug addict." And I'd just be like, "Hey, follow me on Twitter." And I would just like keep going. And, the reason I'm telling you about the Second Chance Act and the, you know, getting Reef Rise out of trash cans and getting them out of the gutter. And, well, let me say one more thing about Reef Rise. Um, Sometimes, well, I'm not going to present this to be anything that it's not. very often in the Reef Rise game, you accidentally smoke dog piss. You know right away. I mean, it is it is a very distinct taste. And almost you can taste. I mean, imagine what dog piss tastes like smoked. That's what happens when you smoke a Reef Rise with dog piss. So, generally you want to be wary of Reef Rise with stains on them. Sometimes it's unavoidable because it's all that you have. And sometimes I'd buy papers and I would just like take apart the Reef Rise, but not always. Usually I would just take a butt off the gutter and just start smoking it. I got footage of me doing that on Patreon that Jeff had taken. I'm like going through, I had all these like hot spots, like by my parents' house at this hotel. And like, I'd go like, there's this one ashtray where it was like, just, pretty much the Cadillac of Reef Rise ashtray bins. And, he filmed me one time because he's like, Jesus, you are just such a dirtbag. And I was like, yeah, but look at this Reef Rise. It's like, 3/4 of the way full. And the reason that I'm telling you guys about all this is because it was a period where I became completely demoralized. I've always been self-deprecating, as I'm sure you can tell. I'm just like, my dick's small. Everyone's like, but then like theirs is smaller than mine. It's meant to be ironic. No, I'm not that kind of guy, but it's it's meant to be irony. You just don't get it. I'm gonna go write a poem about this and look at my shoes. You heard about that? Shoegazer emos? But so I was like in a place where I wouldn't say that I felt really bad about myself. I just didn't give a fuck about my image anymore. I mean, really think about this. I was homeless. I just got my girlfriend, who I just dumped because she was a shady alcoholic. I got her pregnant. I'm out on bail, awaiting sentencing or a plea agreement or trial, whatever it's going to be, for the pimping and pandering case. Pimping and pandering. Well on federal probation. So I'm looking at time. I just got into it with some gay super psychic. My best friend is mad at me because he thinks the reason that his bud got taken was because I'm a loudmouth. What? Oh, and my parents had kicked me out. I felt very like unloved, and nights of sleeping on park benches. The only thing you have is like newspaper to cover you with. All that stuff starts to like just make you not care anymore about what people think of you. And it's a paradox because I care. I did, I'm caring less and less and less now, the more that I put my life out there on YouTube. Um, at first the comments would really bother me. Now I just don't read them because I don't want to like pollute my mind with negativity, and people are going to hate just to hate. But that period, I honestly just felt okay with being a scumbag, being a grimy, smoking out of the gutter. I was still reasonably hot and tan. I was in decent shape with my big red backpack. And then I meet Zack, and Zack is somebody that comes into my life, literally changes it in an instant. So we had, I think I talked about this in the last video. We had connected on the phone because Antwon had said that Zack had been filming him for many years, that he was a good dude, and that he already had a bunch of archival footage, and that me and him should like join forces and collaborate to make this sizzle, this pilot episode. So then when I talked to Zack, he really liked me. I basically sold him on myself. I was like, yeah, I'll suck your dick. He's like, oh yeah. No, I mean, we just, we connected. I think he thought that my story was interesting. I was like, okay, so check this out. I wrote a book. I just recently sold the film rights to it. To people who have recognizable names, not just like random filmmakers that have made a couple straight to DVD movies. Like these are legitimate filmmakers, films like Bully, Spun, American Psycho, movies that I grew up loving. So on one hand, I have that, some career momentum, even though I didn't have press behind me yet, but that was on its way. On one hand, I have all that, and I was like, well, you should probably know this. And then I go into how I'm out on bail, the pimping and pandering, my girlfriend's pregnant. Um, I just recently quit drinking, and I'm probably going to prison for several years. So it's imperative that we make the sizzle and we sell the intellectual property. Straight up acquisition. I make money. And I didn't really know what the plan was going to be after that. But I knew that Antwon would make an interesting show. I knew that I had connections at Spike. And now I had this guy. And I had no idea what his abilities were. I just talked to him on the phone, but he was a very shrewd guy, very, very smart. And he was a nice guy. He was warm, and being in that state where, I constantly smelled like shit. I wiped my ass pretty frequently with leaves when I was sleeping outside, which is whack. When imagine doing that and then like you have to go wash your butthole with like in the drinking fountain, like as the sun's just coming up, it's all like super pale. It's dawn and just everything looks almost violet, and you're just a silhouette homeless junkie scrubbing your ass in a water fountain. And there's people that are up at that time like walking their dogs and stuff. It was just a very, very weird time for me. And then this guy comes into my life. So the plan was that I was going to go down to LA. I was going to meet up with Antwon, interview him, and conceptualize the sizzle or the idea for the show after that point, because I thought it would be important for me to meet him so that I could figure out exactly the direction of the show, like what kind of vision I wanted for it. So we set it up, and this guy, it's a really, really long story, but basically it would take forever to go into this. But this guy that I used to work with, who's a pretty well-known skateboard editor, he has edited some pretty major skate films, like some of the most classic ones of all time in the late 90s, ones that if you're a skater, you definitely agree with me. One of the best skate films ever made was his, and he made some other ones that honorable mentions as well. At one point, I had gotten linked up with him during the Cop Busters phase because I needed an editor. And I was basically making fake armed robbery clips and selling them to Spike TV. And like standing up on a ladder with like a disposable video camera that I get at the pharmacy for like $30. It was like all really grainy, bad. It looked like security cam footage. Stand up on a ladder. My mom owned a store, and then I'd have my friends have a gun, put on a ski mask, and it would look like they were robbing her store. I'd be up on a ladder filming it, and then I'd bring it to this guy. I'd be like, all right, now I need you to put, security cam 1 and scrolling date and time so that they think it's real. Like at first, I always give people these grandiose promises that sometimes I don't deliver on. Sometimes I take a long time to deliver on. But generally my word is poo-poo. We know this. And at first I was like, yo, we're going to make a lot of money, man. I'm talking maybe like $1,000 a week or something. And first he was with it. I think very soon after that he saw the acne problem that I had growing at an exponential and terrifying rate. It looked like I had some sort of flesh-eating virus, because I would get zits and then I'd get all loaded on heroin and just like rip like pepperoni size fucking craters in myself. And I'd come there and be super sucked up, and I'd be like, hey, can I borrow $40? Just give it to me and I'll give it back when I pay you for the security cam footage. Must have been like, and this guy wasn't a drug addict. He's probably, what the fuck? I remember clearly at the end, like I hadn't paid some of the like actors in my fake arm robbery scheme. Spike TV was like super suspicious. They're like, is this fake? And I was like, no. And they're like, well, like we can kind of like hear you like directing the scene in the background, like little snippets of me being like, okay, okay, all right, mom, look scared, like you just barely hear it, but you could totally tell it was bullshit. And so like at the end, this editor guy, like I went up to meet up with him and I was like, all right, I need you to do this, and that. And he's like, look, I see what you're doing and I'm not down with it. I'm over it. Hey, shh, animal lover. So, basically that was the last time I had talked to him, and that was in like 2007. I never looked at him as a bad guy. I think he's a good guy. I think a lot of these people in my life were good people, and I wasn't. So I have like no hard feelings against him from the first time or from this time when we had falling outs. I don't know why I contacted him. Maybe I pitched the idea that if he gave me a ride, because I didn't have a car, maybe if he gave me a ride down to LA to film this sizzle, that he could like be an executive producer on the show or something, because it had to do with skateboarding, and having his professional input would benefit the project. I'm pretty sure it was something like that. And I was like, listen, I'll pay for it. I'll pay for all the gas. I'll buy lunch. My pregnant girlfriend's going to roll with us. And he's like, okay, Ryan, and this is 10 years since the last time he'd seen me. Now, Ryan, we're not going to have a repeat of last time, are we? I'm like, no, brother. I'm sober. I got a baby on the way. I am chilling, homeboy. And he's like, all right. So the day that he's supposed to pick me up. So now I talked to Zack, and Zack was supposed to come down there and film, but he couldn't make it because he had a prior obligation. He was still a consultant for a media company that had a successful YouTube channel. They had like 500,000 followers, something like that, subscribers. And, he was the president of this company. It was a pretty significant company. They've put out some quality short form documentaries, stuff like that. They did one on Dirt Nasty, way before I knew Simon. They did one on Antwon. They did one on a bunch of different people. And he had stepped down from his role as president, but he was still getting residual paychecks from them. And now he was acting as a consultant, basically wearing a lot of different hats for the company, even though he wasn't officially the president. So his schedule was pretty busy. And then he had like a million other side projects going. He was making a bunch of sizzles, pilots, and anyway, he couldn't make it, but he said that he would send his best friend, who was a filmer. I forget what his name was. It's like something with the like Cheeto or something. I don't remember. It's like a chip name. It was Frito, Dorito. I don't know. It was one of the Itos. But so I was supposed to meet him. So this editor guy, the guy that I had like burned for the security cam footage, he comes and picks Karina and I up, I think at her place. And I was like, yeah, man, we just got to go to my parents' house because I don't have any cash on me. And my dad's going to give me the gas money. That was a complete lie. I had not talked to my parents. In my junky mind, and remember, I'm not on heroin, but just because you're not on heroin does not mean that when you get off it, you're like, all right, wow, that was a shady run. You know what? I'm just going to be a good dude now. Fuck it. Kick that shit. I'm not going to be shady anymore. I'm cool. It's not really how it works. You know, when you spend years being shady, lying to people compulsively, like everything that you say is a lie because it has to be, because, you know, you can't be like, excuse me, miss, do you have any spare change? What's it for? Oh, I'm dope sick and I'm just trying to accumulate 20 to 30 bucks so that I can go buy a little chunk of black tar heroin and stick a needle in my neck. You got $3? I mean, you can't do that. You know, you can't tell people, you can't tell your, you know, friends will be like, well, are you clean? It's not like, oh, no, 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 I'm smoking crack, but I still want to hang out. Can I still come over and like take a shower at your place and have a place to crash? Nobody's going to let you over if you're like smoking crack and shooting heroin. So you have to lie and lie and lie and lie and lie. And so I got used to having to say things just to appease people momentarily, you know? And this is, and also now I think I did have good intentions. Like I didn't want to like, I was not trying to burn him or anything in my mind. This was a huge character flaw I had for many, many years as a drug addict. And even in periods when I was sober, I'm a procrastinator. And I'm also like, for some reason, if I really need something, I'm like, just like scared to ask until the very last minute. You know, I procrastinate with that kind of stuff. So in my mind, I thought that if I just showed up at my dad's house, I hadn't asked him for money for a while. I could be like, "Hey, Dad, I'm going down to LA to, you know, film a sizzle for a possible TV show. Can I get a couple $100 so that, you know, like I can feed this guy that's taking me? I can pay for gas both ways, hour and a half each way, but I had to get lunch for me, him, Karina, and then I had to get dinner and gas, you know, probably would have been like $150. I was factoring in cigarettes, my Newport 100s. And so what ends up happening is when I get to my parents' house, so this guy picks us up. You know, we're kind of getting reconnected. We're talking skateboarding because we're both skate rats, and you know, he's like a genuine one. He just is very passionate about it. I still am too. You know, I feel like when I was like a kid and my dad would just like geek out on like ESPN for like basketball and football. I like basketball and football too, but like now that I'm older, I like watch a lot of skateboarding stuff, you know, and I'm just like the guy on the sidelines that can't skate anymore. I just kind of relive my glory days on the football field just by watching like the little like 21-year-old kids kickflip over cones. I'm just like, I remember when I was like that. And I started doing drugs. And I don't know. It's entertaining for me. So anyway, so we're like connecting. I get to my parents' house. I knock on the door. They're down in the car, Karina and this guy. And I go, my dad answers. He's like, hey. I'm like, hey. And I pitched the whole thing to him. My dad's like, no, I'm not giving you any money. I was like, why not? He's like, because you spend it on drugs or something. I'm not just going to give you $200 just because you want it. I was like, but dad, you know, it's for, and it's funny because my dad always thinks I'm bullshitting when it's something like that, when it's like something legit. But then like, I'll call him and be like, I got a flat tire. I need $80 because I need like a gram or something. He'll be like, okay, and like come bring it to me. But for stuff like this, it sounds so outlandish and complex. He thinks it's a lie. So he doesn't give me the money, which sucks, you know? And so now I have to go back to the car. I go, okay, he didn't have cash. He's just gonna, you know, PayPal it later. Let's just go. And editor could see right through my bullshit. He's like, no way. No way. No, he didn't sound like that. I always use that voice. No, I don't even know who that is. That's just some random shit I say all the time. He's like, what the fuck? He's like, is this a repeat of 2007? I can't do the shady shit with you this time, Ryan. I'm just not going to do it. So I'll drive you guys back, but I'm not leaving here until we have money. Great. So I haven't even met Zack's people yet, and already a complication. Like, Zack doesn't know I'm homeless and like trying to get rich with the lotto scratcher ticket scheme. Like, that's what I like considered my job. You know, if people ask me, oh, I'm self-employed. Oh, really? What do you do? Oh, I'm a lotto scratcher research analysis person. Oh, that sounds good. You know, people do, they don't give a fuck. People just want to hear themselves talk. So they ask you questions. They don't care what the answer is. You can just say whatever. And they're like, oh, that's so great. And so eventually so we're in the car. It's kind of like a checkmate. He's not going to leave without money. He doesn't have the money to just facilitate this trip. We don't have any food, doesn't have gas. I don't know what he was doing for a living at the time, but I know he's living with his girlfriend. So he wasn't even like paying rent. He was staying at her place. Finally, Zack calls me. He's like, hey, is everything cool? And I'm like, well, actually, I lost my wallet and my dad's going to PayPal money later, but I need it because we need the gas money to get, I don't know. I just told him like some pretty much the truth, but with like a couple minor details omitted. And Zach's like, do you need money? Like, I can Venmo you money right now. What's up? I was like, yeah, I can PayPal you back when my dad does. He's like, no, don't even trip. Here, I'll send you something. Give me your Venmo. So um, I give it to him and he sends me like 400 bucks, something like that. And that was like the first of a lot of money that Zach would ultimately throw my way. Never once did I intend to take advantage of him. But it was just a really sharp contrast from like literally being homeless to having somebody that believed in me and started bankrolling me. So we go down there. We get to the Santa Monica courthouse, which is a pretty famous skate spot that kids used to go there all the time. Trespass, you know, skating's considered vandalism because you fuck up properties, ledges, rails, whatever. Eventually, they just turned it into a legal skate zone, you know, because I think they realized that it kept a lot of kids actually out of trouble if they could skate instead of finding other ways to express themselves, like spray painting the side of trains and shit. So they made it legal. We went down. There was a bunch of ledges. I met Antwon. You know, I don't know. It pretty much how I expected. He was cool. We talked a little bit about him just going to jail, him getting out. I talked about how I was probably going back to prison. So, you know, automatically we have that convict language that we can speak. So we connected on that. And I was skating a little bit back then, you know, that summer. So I skated with him. We actually had like a really fun day, skated the ledges. We played a couple games of skate, which is like playing horse, you know, with basketball, but you do it with this, you do a trick, then someone else has to do a trick. Um, and then I interviewed him, you know, and it was a pretty powerful interview because he was talking about losing his mom, and she was somebody that was like very, very good and influential to him throughout his life. He's talking about how his older brother's serving a life sentence. Um, you know, like I said, he really had a lot stacked against him. I thought it was a good interview. And you know, Zack had sent this like camera crew, his friend Dorito or whatever the fuck his name was, and they had like really professional equipment. They had red cams, you know, cameras that are like it's probably like $150,000 worth of equipment. They had like all the professional lighting. They had like someone doing the sound. They had multiple people filming, big tripods. I mean, it looked like a little set for like, you know, like a little independent film. I really hadn't been around equipment that was that sophisticated. I'd been in prison for a while, gotten out, and you know, I worked for Spike in '07, but I wasn't really around the industry since then, you know, not like that side of it, like being on sets and stuff. So automatically, I knew that Zack was coming from a professional standpoint. And, um, you know, at one point I had talked to Antwon and I was like, so what's up with Zack? Like, he's just some rich guy that has a bunch of equipment. And he just like was like, well, his best friend was there. You know, this guy Marcus, and they're like, he's not struggling, that's for sure. And so, and they were like really cool. They were cool guys. I got what I felt I needed, and then I went with the editor and Karina, and we went back to Santa Barbara. We got something to eat, and the next day, I called Zack. We started talking about the show, and it was basically what I had already conceptualized before, that it would be a resurrection show where it would show him, you know, already having an established following and then getting in trouble, going to prison, coming out and trying to refurbish his career, have a complete resurrection. And it would be a reality show because we could actually show in real time him trying to move forward and the obstacles that would pop up. You know, he's on parole at the time. And I said that the same model could be applied to anybody with a pre-existing following, MMA fighter, underground hip hop artist, people that had the kind of fame that somebody like Antwon had, like not like a household name if you're not a skater, but if you're a skater, you know who he is, famous for that particular industry, I guess, so that they would come in with a core built-in audience. So once we had that idea, Zack and I started talking about it in depth, and I had kind of like an arbitrary deadline from my connection at Spike. He said that he would take a look at the sizzle, and he said that the best time would be, it was like 2 weeks from that point that we filmed. So I told Zack that, and Zack knew that we had to pretty much rush the project so that we could get the sizzle, while this guy was actually doing IP acquisitions and purchasing new intellectual properties for shows that they were going to have. This is before it turned into the Paramount Network. So, and he was working for MTV too. He's working for for Ridiculousness. He was one of the producers. He was like a content producer for that. And anyway, so like he was plugged. We knew that if we made a good enough sizzle and had a nice concept behind it, there was a good chance that we could actually get a deal. Everybody was on board for it. Meanwhile, when we get back to Santa Barbara, I'm still homeless, struggling, lotto scratchers, sober now, except for shooting Suboxone, but relatively sober. And, my PO make me jump through hoops. So now I'm having to go to this place called, I don't even remember. It was like a dual diagnosis center for the mentally ill and drug addicted. They did outpatient classes there. I didn't have to do any of that. I just had to show up. I had to call, my number. The number or the color is blue. I was red, actually. The number is red. Or the color, Jesus Christ. The color is red. So then I'd have to go in. It was once a week. I got tested 4 times a month. Now, at this particular place, it was all females. So right off the bat, I already saw that there was a vulnerability there. There was a weakness where they couldn't watch me pee. A female can't be like, yeah, whip your dick out, pee in this cup, and you're like wearing aviators. You're like, yeah, so, and just start peeing. Like, come on, that's not going to happen. That's like some Pornhub plot shit. And so right away, I'm like, oh, I can smoke weed. Cool. So I started smoking weed pretty frequently. And every time I went into test, they would just be like, okay, go in here. And at first, I was doing a method where I would get a syringe and I would fill it with bleach, 1 cc insulin syringe. Fill the entire thing up with bleach, put a cap on it, put some tape around it, and I would cheek it just because I like sticking shit up my butt. You know what I mean? And I'd go in there, I'd pee, and then I'd squirt the bleach into the piss, stir it, and give it to them. So now the gravity was correct, had the right temperature because they took the temperature of the pee and, they checked for pH levels, creatine levels to make sure that it wasn't tampered with. That worked for a while. And I was going to the Nazi therapist, and she was just not making my life any easier. She was constantly berating me. So although the Zack stuff was encouraging, I had all that going on. And then on top of that, I was going to court for the pimping and pandering thing. And the DA was out to get me. Clear from the get-go, oh, we got to get rid of the pimps. It was actually a female that was like my age. And, like every time I'd go to court, she would just kind of like look at me, not like look at me like you're a piece of shit, but like look at me like you're going to lose, like that kind of look. I could just tell. I'm like, God. And so I would go, we'd postpone it. she'd make her little arguments about why we needed to wrap this case up sooner rather than later. I was on federal probation, but I had this guy, Adam, and he was basically just pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And he kept telling me, he's like, listen, best you can do is 3 years. And I'd just be like, just push it, just push it. I might go to trial. I might be able to make some money. Who knows? You know, I got the show thing going possibly. Let's just see how it plays out. So I had all of that going on. And around this time, so Jeff like really wasn't talking to me because of the gay psychic, you know, who would have sonar conversations with dolphins in the Philippines or whatever, fucking weirdo. And he had definitely set us up, you know, that night before, where he was like plotting and planning on me. I've never been so sure of something in my entire life. And I was like, Jeff, how do you not see this? The guy was pissed off that I was always over. Then out of nowhere, the HOA gets called and says that there's somebody living at your condo illegally. I don't think so. Jeff didn't know what to think. He was like pretty much in shock that his plants got jacked like that, especially from his parents. Like that was so like random and out of left field. What ends up happening now, his parents, him and I had been pretty much best friends for, I mean, on and off. We've had falling outs. There's the gun incident, if you guys remember that. He did an interview on Patreon. Sound wasn't that good, so I'm gonna do one again, but that one will stay on Patreon. You know, I let the VIP members ask the questions. But you know, his parents throughout that time didn't have like a good, you know, most people's parents don't like me. For one thing, Jeff doesn't have a tattoo on him. And I'm not saying that tattoos make you look sketchier, but tattoos definitely make me look sketchier because I'm already like, oh, he's been to prison multiple times. And then like I show up and I just have like all these like super ghetto like prison tattoos. You can't see my legs, but my legs are completely full. And you can tell that it's like, it's prison work, you know? Not saying that like a conservative adult would know what that means. Cops know for sure. So I got all this color on my arm because I'm like, all right, I got prison work. It's kind of like going against me. I'll get color work so that I look like some like military guy. And that was like the point. Sociopath shit. So, you know, they knew that I was one of the people that had gotten him into heroin when he was younger, and he was a hardcore junkie, hardcore. Now he has his real estate license. He doesn't do any drugs, but you know, he's a junkie with me for a long time. And not only did I like help him become a junkie, like showing him different techniques of like shooting up, but I'd be like, oh, dude, let me show you how cool other heroin addicts are. So, okay, this is Lou Reed. This is the Velvet Underground. You know, oh, look, this is William S. Burroughs. He's like a really intelligent junkie. Isn't this shit cool? So I kind of sold him that, you know, illusion about how cool the heroin culture is. It's honestly how I felt when I was younger. What an idiot I was. But, you know, so in a lot of ways, I was a really bad influence on him, and his parents knew that. And then there was another guy, my old best friend, who I don't even say his name because he's a fucking punk. But you know, it was like the three of us for a while, and me and that other guy brought Jeff down, and his parents knew that. And then I was like always going to prison, and I was always like showing up with a wife beater. I smoke cigarettes. A lot of people's parents don't like that. I'm always smoking, and like I'm just rude. I'll like, you know, I don't smoke like in the house or anything, but people don't like cigarettes. It smells like shit. So when this happened, I begged for a sit down. I hadn't talked to his parents in probably like 7 years. I think the last time I even saw his dad was another time when I was homeless and I was living on his couch, and like he kind of just showed up there one morning. I don't remember why. And he saw me and he just kind of gave me a bad look. So I didn't really like sat down and talked to them for many, many years. So I asked for a sit down because I wanted my best friend back. I was like, he's mad at me and I wanted to get to the bottom of it. So, you know, they agreed to give me one. And I went over there like on a Sunday and we had a wonderful conversation. You know, we talked about Jeff. and future business endeavors that they were thinking about doing with him. And I started explaining to them about marijuana. And they're like, you know how you like to have a glass of red wine? Okay. 2017, marijuana is essentially a red wine. I mean, it's for a connoisseur. It's very benign. You know, alcohol has much worse effects on you than marijuana. How many people get stoned and beat people up? You'd have to be a big weirdo if you get blazed and you're like, I want to be violent. Fuck it, I'm so baked. And just take off on someone stoned. How many people get stoned and rape somebody? Another. That's like, man, can't even. I'm always like in my head so much when I get stoned, and you have to think like, are people that get violent and people that rape people, are they like all like over analytical about what they're doing when they're stoned? That makes it so much fucking creepier. You know, how many car accidents happen when people are too stoned? I don't know. I'm a shitty driver when I'm too baked. You know, I can say that. But all in all, you're not going to die from cirrhosis of the liver from marijuana. I don't think lung cancer is very common with marijuana either. Certainly not as common as tobacco with the additives. And I start kind of presenting this case, and then I give the entire chronology about me, what happened with my latest case, and then I go into the gay psychic. And I think I just articulated it well, almost like an attorney. I presented like a lot of evidence, and I was like, you know, it wasn't a PowerPoint presentation, but it was in like a tradition of one of those. You know, I was wearing like my nicest shirt. It was like probably like a band T-shirt. I don't know. I don't know what, like a Misfit shirt or I don't know. Not Misfit. I don't know. It's like something like that. I mean, I didn't have like nice clothes, but somehow I basically won them over. They liked me. You know, they're like, wow, sitting down with you, you actually seem pretty level-headed. You can articulate things. Okay, we don't hate you anymore. I don't think they ever did. But you know, and they're principled family. They did not come out and straight say that the gay psychic had ratted, but they alluded to it enough where my purpose of going to that meeting was done. Jeff realized what the truth was, and not only did you know, he forgive me, but they kicked the gay psychic out, which was good for me. No more sleeping on park benches. Shit, sure, Jeff would let me stay there for as long as I need to now. So it actually ended up backfiring on this dude. He tried to like snitch us out, and and I got all of his weed back. Now the plants, you know, they got destroyed. I mean, he got all the stuff back, but it fucked everything up, fucked up all the cycles. But point is he did set us up. I knew it. Got the bud taken. Tried to like somehow turn Jeff's family against him. But once that you know, they're fair people, they listen to me and they're like, huh, yeah, fuck that. Let's kick that dude out. I was like, all right. And so they did. And we will get into what happens with the Antwon show, Resurrection, when Zack and I start getting closer. And we're getting close to the breakdown period. Breakdown is the prelude before prison. That's a pretty weird time for me. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Like, comment, subscribe. Butt fuck my cock. If you don't have Pepsi, you're a cop. Palabra.